but I can't remember. Yes, he had a name. So,
Well, let's talk about the community and the school and how politics affect the operation
you
of
know,
your school.
when I saw that question, I just don't know of anything where politics had anything to do with the country schools. I don't know how Miss Rendelman, the county superintendent, whether she was voted on, appointed. I don't know. I think she was appointed, but I don't know. But I don't recall any politics involved. Audubon County at that time was a very Republican county, and I think most people agreed with that, and so there weren't the troubles.
Can you think about how the we've already talked a little about how parents were involved with the school. Any other way that they helped with this Christmas program?
Yes, we had Christmas program, and it was always well attended, and the people would bring lanterns and have lots of lanterns in the school, for light. And I told you, I sang White Christmas one time with my friend Arlene, and from the time you were little, you had maybe 1 or 2 lines you had to learn, but everybody did something. And I can remember they would string a wire across one end of the school and then put a big, like, blanket or something up there, for a curtain. And so it was fun. Another thing at Christmas time, we spent a lot of time on this. We made Christmas presents for our parents, and I still have 2 that I made. One is George and Martha Washington in round oval, and they're kind of goldish, yellowish gold with black, like silhouettes. And the other was an Aunt Jemima, which wouldn't be correct today, but it held a little calendar and a notepad. And Mom had it in her kitchen for quite a while, and I have it, and I have George and Martha. But we each had, the parents had to buy a coping saw. Now, whether they had to buy the wood, I don't remember. But I know that was my own little coping saw. And you worked so carefully on that, and like I said, we spent a lot of time on that.
What did you do once you left school?
I started off telling about working the hay, and then I forgot to tell you that I was water boy for thrashing. And of course we had the old thrashing machine come, and that was always, it would go around to many different farms, and when it was your turn, here he came with his steam engine tractor, chugging along, had big lugs on the wheels, it was huge tractor. And he'd come chugging, you could hear him coming for a long time. And of course he would have to keep the steam up, and then it had this huge belt that would go from his flywheel to the flywheel on the thrashing machine. And the farmers would all come with their wagons and teams and be working out in the field. And I was the water boy that would have to take them water all the time, and I would just go to each wagon, and they'd all drink out of the same old, the old jug, and then I'd go back to the well and fill it up and go out again. And I was lucky because my sister got stuck in the kitchen.
We did kind of skip over that. We started talking about what you did after graduation, and you talked about the summertime. We should talk about what you did after you graduated from 8th grade then.
Well, of course, I went to high school, and in Audubon, and it seems so big. And I thought, I'll never find my way around. It was 3-story school, and naturally you found your way around, but I enjoyed having home ec. I worked on sewing, and I love to sew to this day, although I don't do much anymore. And, we learned to bake and cook, and I'll tell you another story. My friend Ardith, who also went to country school with me for a few years, and then they moved. But anyway, she and I were cooking together, and we were supposed to be making baking powder biscuits. And the rule was, what you made, you ate. We forgot to put the baking powder in. They were awful, awful. You can imagine what they were like, but we ate them anyway. I tell you, you don't forget to put baking powder in when you have an experience like that.
You never forgot again, did you?
Never forgot again. And I remember we made pudding, and this, of course, pudding from scratch. And then once in a while, not all the time would they have hot lunches at school, but once in a while they'd have the home ec girls make chili, and that was always a big day. We'd make the chili and then eat at school. But I enjoyed that. I had one of my favorite teachers was my geometry teacher. Now, I don't like math, but she was such a good teacher, and she got geometry through to me, and I enjoyed that. And algebra the year before, no, he wasn't a very good teacher, and I didn't understand algebra. I took speech, and that turned out to be probably one of the best helpful classes that I had, because I learned to get up in front of a group and talk. And what does a teacher do but get up in front of a group and talk? So that was very helpful. I remember in history, we went over to Lincoln, Nebraska, and toured their capital. And of course, they only have the one, everything
House.
Is together. Yeah,
Assembly? What do they
House
call
and
it?
Senate is together, whatever. Bicameral?
I would be us when it would be
Yeah.
two.
Well, whatever
Mono
it's
or
called.
whatever it is.
Anyway, so we went over there to learn more about that and visit the Capitol. That was a big day. And I don't remember how long lunch hour was. I think it was probably pretty long, because I stayed in town with my grandparents, who just lived a block and a half away, and so I always went home for lunch, except when we made chili. Then I stayed, and the rule was, and there was never any argument about it, that I would clean off the table and do the dishes before I went back, and I did.
And was that a real big meal too? Was that their big meal of the day?
It was usually pretty big, yeah, yeah. And so I didn't waste any time doing dishes. And that meant wash, dry, and put them in the cupboard, not drain them in a dish drainer.
Or put them in the dishwasher?
Yeah, there was no such thing back then.
Okay. What about homework?
In the country school,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember having any, outside of perhaps reading some of these books that I read at home. Now, Mother drilled me on math and spelling, and I got pretty good spelling grades, because she would, I always had to bring my list home, and then she would drill me. So I got pretty good grades in spelling. I guess sometimes I would work on a map at home, but usually no. Because you have time at school to work. Had homework in high school. Had quite a lot of homework in high school.
Do you remember any major local, national, or world events happen?
Well, of course, the Depression, and all the kids, you'd see a lot of patches on clothes and hand-me-downs that didn't fit exactly right, but everybody basically looked the same. I remember my sister, and I was so proud of it, I could still see what it looked like. She made me a dress made out of flour sacks, and I remember that it was kind of tannish brown on the bottom, and the top had blue flowers and blue. So it was tan and blue, and I thought it was just the best dress. And then when I learned to sew, I made a lot. Of course, that would have been more in high school. I made my own clothes a lot. And Mother always said to Dad when he went in to get feed, now get all the sacks the same, so that you would have enough material to make something. And, they were dish towels, they were curtains, they were clothes, they were, I don't know whether we actually made underwear out of them or not. I wouldn't be surprised we did. I don't really remember. And then, so the Depression, and of course World War II, and my brother was in the Navy and stationed on a aircraft carrier in the South Pacific. So he got up close to many of those islands. And I remember at supper, we didn't ever talk. We didn't ever talk because the news was on, and they wanted to be sure they heard all the news. So we never talked at supper time.
Did World War II affect the school at all?
Well, that teacher left, so I guess that was an effect because he was a good teacher, so that would have affected it. I don't remember grade school. I remember in high school, some of the guys went just as young as they could, and then they came back and finished. When I was like a senior, there were some that were quite a bit older than I was because they were finishing.
We've talked about the Christmas program that was at the school. Were there any other special events held at the school?
End of the year picnic. And we always got to pick the food we wanted, and I remember one of the mothers, Mrs. Jensen, made the best chocolate cake. So we always asked her to make chocolate cake. And I don't remember what my own mother made. She was a good cook too, but I don't remember what she made.
You can always have that, right? Do you remember any other uses for the school building or the schoolyard?
No, it was not a voting center or anything.
What was your favorite part of the day?
Well, I suppose you would say lunch hour, when we played out, on the, and like I told you about the sleds and all.
Did you have other recesses besides lunch hour?
Did I have what?
Other recesses? Were there morning recess or afternoon recess, a break?
Yeah, I think we did, yeah. Morning and afternoon, yeah. Just like 15 minutes, which is typical. Yeah. And that meant everybody, even the 8th graders got one, Yeah.
What would you say was your favorite part of country school?
Well, just associating with the same students for many years, and getting to be good friends, and you just had a closeness feeling. You felt loved. Your teachers. I remember one teacher. I came one day, and I had all red on, and It was a red skirt, I remember that, and I don't know, a red sweater, I don't know. But anyway, she called me her little red bird. And I still remember that. And you just felt loved there and accepted and just really part of it. Where some of these big schools today, you know, I don't know, the kids don't get that close feeling anymore.
What's your worst memory from country school?
Oh, the 8th grade examination and just daily math work, I guess. I really didn't like that.
What lessons from country schools can we benefit from today?
I think learning to work on your own, and you would have to read, like say in language or something. It would have directions, and you had to read your own directions. The teacher didn't go over them. And then there was an example or two of how you were to do it, like if you were diagramming sentences or something such as that. And then you had to study that and then go down and do it on your own. And I think you learned to work on your own and not depend so much on teachers' help and guidance. So you got good study habits. And that carried over, I told you, to high school. Good study habits.
Could one-room schoolhouses be successful today?
I thought that was an interesting question. I put some are still in use today, like in low population states. I know, like out in Montana there are still some. I think out in western Nebraska there are still some. And of course the Amish here in Iowa have theirs. So some are still going. But would they be successful? Probably not. But I wish we could go back to a more simple time. I think the stress level would go down tremendously. And I just believe I received a good start on my education, and I love school, so you know, and I loved high school, I loved college, and I think it was just the way I got started off. The teachers were so dedicated in those days. I mean, the things they had to do, they had to get there and you know, build the fire and all, and get the building warm, and they had so many lesson plans. They were so dedicated, and they didn't have a lot of materials to use. You know, they didn't have any machine that would make copies. Now, I can remember at the very end, they got that gel kind. They got that at the very end, but they didn't have that most of the time. So, I mean, the supplies were very limited, and they were just so dedicated. Like that teacher that walked through the blizzard to get there. I mean, that would not happen today. No way would that happen today.
Anything else we should know?
Yes, I want to tell you that I'm wearing my mother's, this was her high school graduation watch, and the reason I'm wearing it is because my mother taught in country school for, you know, they couldn't be married. So before she got married, she was a teacher. Her mother, my grandmother, also taught in the country school. So that's why I'm wearing this today.
That is special. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, I just am so thankful, Jean,
Oh.
that you
Oh.
came to do this.
Ellen, it's been wonderful.
Yes.
I thank you too. Shall we look at some of these report cards, and we can put those in front of the camera?
Okay, all right. Well, I'll show you some bad grades. This is my first grade, and you will notice, and now I said I loved reading, but you will notice right up here I got an F. And then, of course, I got much better. But, so,
An F
but
in reading, that
there
does
there was
surprise
an
me.
F. And then I went from an F to a G.
And G meant
Good.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
So was F fine?
No, F.
F was-
F was
F is-
fair.
F is fair.
It wasn't
Okay.
flunking. It was
Okay.
fair.
Okay. Let's
And-
look at Abraham on the front too. At the front of
Yes.
the report card has Abraham Lincoln and his quote: "I will study and prepare myself, and perhaps someday, any chance,
My chance.
my chance will come."
Yes. And so, and then here are my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ones. In 6th grade, a lot of satisfactories here, and okay, there's my math scores.
There's your
Am
math
I holding
scores.
it in the
Okay,
right? There's my math scores. But you notice over here, I have very good attendance, and they always said that writing was much improved. It said here, but a lot of times it said it asked about health. Now, I don't see where it asks about health on this one. And I don't know what these all mean, but this teacher
Oh, that
used
was-
a lot of,
okay.
yeah, I don't know what that all meant. That was 6th grade. Oh, I got a B minus in math.
Well, that was pretty good, wasn't
Yeah, I improved a lot there, and so you can see I had some A's down here. This is probably music. Yes, I was always good in music. But again, notice my attendance.
it? Never missed a day.
Just don't miss.
Did you
And,
ever miss a day?
Yes, I did, but not very often. Here I missed a half a day. Okay, work study skills, especially reading, is improving. Industrious habits and the ability to go ahead. Okay, spelling. See, I said I was pretty good in spelling
Yes, you did.
because Mother drilled me all the time. What did I get in math here? I got a C minus because I had some D's to begin with. And then this, I think, this is my scores on my 8th grade examination. And you
Oh,
notice
okay.
I got a 70?
A 91 in spelling.
Yeah, yeah.
A 90 in music.
Yeah. So, arithmetic, 76. I told you I
Okay.
barely passed it.
Did it take a 75 to pass?
Probably, yeah. And of course, that would have meant I would not have gotten to go into high school, and that would have really done me in, you know.
Did some kids go back and repeat the 8th grade year so they could go to high school?
I don't remember. I just don't remember. A lot of kids at that time did not go past 8th grade. Quite a few of them did not.
Let's look at your pictures. You have a picture of your horse,
Yes, I
of
do.
Lady Kay that you rode.
I do have a picture. Her name is Lady Kay, and she lived to be very old.